I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of President, joins me. Much news ahead, much of it threatening. We have to be careful here about the remarks by politicians and diplomats representing Iran, Syria, Russia, the United States, Israel. Very careful, because there's a moving story here. These men are saying things, and then there's a response, and then they adjust the statement. There's nothing fixed. You can't take it home. Right now, we'll begin with a comment by Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran, Mohammad Javad Zarif, who was much in the news during the November 23rd interim agreement in Geneva and has been in the news on and off ever since then. Zarif served as an ambassador to the United Nations, and now he's the foreign minister. The comment that he made in particular was that the agreement has led to no dismantling whatsoever of the suspect nuclear weapons program. It's meant to be provocative, it is, and the foreign media, the European media, is now characterizing this as a new headache for Washington. Welcoming tonight Malcolm Hoenlein, who's the Bear Aspirin of commentators in Washington. Malcolm, Washington's got a headache. Please relieve
It's more like fizz, fizz, plop, plop.
Zarif makes a provocative statement. It's predictable, right? And he makes this statement, and within hours, everybody rushes to the White House or rushes to Congress. What are you going to do about it? What he said was meant to provoke everyone and to be troublemaking. So did he get what he wanted?
Oh, he absolutely got the attention that he wanted, but this is part of a series of statements which I think are really quite remarkable when you put them together. Today's remarks were only the latest in a series where he essentially attacked and criticized the United States and saying what they claim was an agreement was not, that they exaggerated the concessions and made by Iran and underestimated the gains made by Iran. Now, this is certainly a provocative formulation coming from Zarif against the U.S.
He said there was no dismantling.
No, and then that's part one. Part two was that he came out and said, look, we have not committed to dismantle anything, not one centrifuge. We will not dismantle any equipment. Now, part of the agreement certainly was that they had to dismantle some of the connections that enabled them to enrich the 20%, between the various centrifuge components that enabled them to enrich up to the 20%. Also, we were told repeatedly that there would be a dismantling and some of the infrastructure. Iraq, we were told the plutonium reactor would be just frozen.
Under construction, yes.
Frozen at the point that nothing else could be done except to the exterior first, and then it turns out to the interior and exterior, but not to the mechanical operations per se. But I think that Rouhani is challenging the United States, putting forward this for his internal reasons. The IRGC, the Iran Revolutionary Guard, talk about ousting Rouhani and criticizing Rouhani. Of course, it's Khamenei that really matters, and Khamenei seems to be backing him, and he has no reason not to. The rial, the currency of Iran, is up. The stock market is up. You have foreign delegations coming there. So any talk or anybody who believed that the sanctions regime, because of the concessions, would remain intact, the structure is intact, but we see this erosion and the changing psychology of it, the fact that Russia signs an $18 billion deal, many others are rushing there, the Italians, the Germans, the French, and the statements being made. So I think Rouhani has every reason to crow about this, and he's even been invited by Morocco to join the Jerusalem Committee, supposedly with Secretary Kerry's approval, but we have to find out. And Mr. Putin announced that he will be visiting Tehran today.
We'll have more detail about Iranian shenanigans in the program. We turn now to breaking news story. The headlines are spare, but they're shocking. Israel has foiled an al-Qaeda plot to carry out a suicide bombing at the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. These are hours old. What we know is that they're identifying it as an al-Qaeda plot. We don't have more details. It is Shin Bet. What is Shin Bet, Malcolm?
Shin Bet is the internal security. It's sort of like our FBI.
Arrested 3 Palestinians accused of carrying out the plot. Carrying out this plot, but we don't have details. Al-Qaeda striking in Tel Aviv is new to me, Malcolm. I do not remember that coming up before, because we've had Palestinian terror these years, Hamas terror, but not Al-Qaeda terror.
That's quite correct, and it's a threat to Fatah and to the Palestinian Authority as well, the presence of al-Qaeda. We know that they have made several attempts in the past, but never this kind of a plot, which was hatched in Gaza. And al-Zawahiri, the head of al-Qaeda, the inheritor from Osama bin Laden, supposedly recruited these 3 Palestinians who were to come in and to blow up the U.S. Embassy and other targets in Tel Aviv. At the same time, there was going to be an attack by 5 people who were coming in with fake Russian passports to hit in Jerusalem at the convention center, Binyanei Huma, which you visited, the International Convention Center, and several other locations, and in fact to have a truck bomb there to blow up all of the first responders who come to rescue the victims.
Time for Geneva 2? Do we know what they were looking for? Just opportunity, or did they have?
Well, Al-Qaeda is always looking for opportunities, as you said, to exploit, but certainly it's tied to the peace process, but also to assert their role. We know that in the Golan, they have tried to move closer and closer from the Syrian side into this. They want to be a player. There's no place to become a player than to carry out some sort of an outrage and to make their mark. You have, as you know, the growth of the Salafist groups now, the talk even of the Salafist crescent with Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and the increasing role that they're playing, and the Sunni drive for a caliphate. And the attacks would be targeting both Israel and the Arab states. So you have competing elements now trying to assert themselves, gain recognition, and of course, nothing more spectacular than blowing up the U.S. Embassy to get attention.
Off to Switzerland. Within these last hours, Rouhani, the president of Iran, addressing Davos, the World Economic Forum, and the headlines say that the Prime Minister of Israel was disturbed, annoyed, and irritated by Mr. Rouhani's address. Rouhani, is he the quieter version of the provocateur that Mr. Zarif is? Is that his role now?
He's the quieter version of Ahmadinejad, and has made very clear, Zarif, as the Prime Minister said, hidden behind this smile is somebody who talks about peace but still continues to talk about the destruction of Israel, who says that they don't need nuclear weapons, yet drives for them, and cited all of the horrors that they were involved in, not only their own violation of human rights, their support for terror in Syria, etc., the whole region, and trying to expose that this is a chameleon, and talking about his own statements when he was a negotiator in 2003. So Iran's representative there is very clever. He knows how to play the game, but he in fact, they caught the foreign minister going a little too far in some of his statements, so they had to backtrack. But they were essentially telling the truth. They were saying, look, this is what we're getting out of this deal. And anybody who thinks that we're being snookered, better remember, we're bazaris. We've been in the bazaar for 2,000 years, and none of these Westerner neophytes can challenge us.
We best help the audience, because we'll talk about this over a long period of time. What does it mean to be good at the bazaar, Malcolm?
It means that these are people who have traders, who have been involved in bargaining, and who are incredibly good businessmen and negotiators, and they know how to obfuscate, how to manipulate. And they, as he did with the Europeans, when he was a negotiator, Rouhani himself, and all of his the subsequent negotiators, including Larjani, people get extolled now, but people forget the real record of their activities, and they pride themselves on this, and they talk about it, how they lie and obfuscate and are able to gain time, because that's the main thing they need. They need the time to move ahead. The research and development is going up ahead unchecked, missile development unchecked, weaponization unchecked, and uninspected. And we have to see how far they will really let the IEA inspectors go to see what's really happening in other locations.
Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, commenting about Mr. Rouhani's speech, it sounds good. I wish it were real. It isn't real.
That's right.
Malcolm Hoenlein, Conference of Presidents, Major American Jewish Organizations. I'm John Batchelor.